My name's Stux. I'm a professional Overwatch coach, and I have a few tips up my sleeve that might help you aim. Don't miss out on any future videos by headshotting that subscribe button and join the Discord to ask questions. Crosshair placement is something that gets thrown out a lot, but I want to actually explain why it is so incredibly important. I'm going to be repeating some concepts that are going to be mentioned in other parts of this series, so if some stuff here sounds familiar, you know why. Before we talk about crosshair placement, we need to make a clear separation. A lot of people think that aiming is all about moving your wrist and arm, but not all wrist or arm movements are created equal. You need to split your movements into one of two categories. You have aim movements and turn movements. In this video, we will mainly talk about turn movements. The point behind aim movements is to actually put your crosshair on the target, whereas turn movements are much faster but also less precise movements. The point behind turn movements is to place your crosshair closer to the target before you start aiming at them. The closer your crosshair is to your target, the easier it is to hit your shots. That's because your target takes up more space relative to your offshoot range. What's the offshoot range? I use this term to describe the area in which your shots could land. Let's say you need to flick a shot somewhere. Obviously, you won't always hit the target. Around your targeted location, there's going to be an offshoot zone. Imagine flicking to the same area 100 times in a row. You will see that most shots land near the center, and as you go further away from the target, less and less shots will end up there. That's your offshoot zone. And the better your aim gets, the smaller this zone will get. The offshoot zone's size depends on how far the flick is. Its horizontal radius is determined by the horizontal distance to the target. The vertical radius is determined by the vertical distance to the target. So if your target is to the top right of your crosshair, it'll be a circle. If it's to your right, it's going to be very elliptical. The reason it's not a straight line is because even if the target is perfectly level with your crosshair, there will still be certain imperfections that cause you to aim a little higher or lower when flicking if the angle isn't quite right. Now, the thing is that the closer your crosshair starts to the target, the smaller this offshoot range zone will be. So, let's say that your target is 30 degrees away from your crosshair. Let's say that if you would shoot 100 flicks, the radius of your offshoot zone would be around 5 inches. The radius of your target is 1 inch. This means that your target takes up 20% of your offshoot zone, aka 20% of your shots will land. Now, as we put the target closer to your crosshair before shooting, the radius of the target will still be 1 inch, but because the mouse movement is smaller, so is the offshoot zone. So let's say the offshoot zone is now just 2 inches. This would mean that your target would take up 50% of the offshoot zone, aka 50% of your shots will land. The closer we get your crosshair to the target, the easier landing shots will be. Because shots that would count as misses with longer flicks are easy hits with shorter movements. Also keep in mind that all of these percentages are arbitrary. Obviously in an actual scenario, just because the target takes up 50% of the offshoot zone won't mean that 50% of your shots will actually land, because you are more likely to land a shot closer to the center of the offshoot zone. So usually your actual accuracy is going to be a little higher than the numbers that I'm using here. And that's why turn movements are so important. They place your crosshair closer to your target, which results in your shots being much easier to land, as even slight over or undershoots will still land within the target's hitbox. You want large turns, but small adjustments. Obviously, we need to make sure that our turn movements are as fast and accurate as possible. If they aren't accurate, then the distance between target and crosshair might still be pretty large, and if they aren't fast, then we will face two issues. For one, by the time the turn movement is completed, our crosshair placement will be off, since the target had time to change its location. And slow turn movements will also cause motion sickness. Your turn movements need to be almost instant. That way, you spend less time adjusting to your new viewport. And if you placed your crosshair well after the turn, then your target will be very close to the crosshair. So if you're really focused on your target, you won't even notice that you made a turn movement. One great way to practice this is with Tracer. Try to blink to the side of the enemy and make a 90-degree turn as fast as possible. If you do it right, you'll be able to turn in less than a frame, which means that there was not a single frame in which your crosshair wasn't on the target, assuming that you placed your crosshair perfectly on that turn. If your turn is slow, then it will take longer to refocus and find the target. The faster and more accurate these turn movements, the easier aiming is going to get. So that's crosshair placement. Trying to get your crosshair as close to the target as possible before actively trying to put your crosshair on the target. This helps tremendously with aim, since most people skip this step and start tracking even though their crosshair is nowhere near their target, or their turn movements are so slow that they need to reorient themselves after large turns, which you obviously want to avoid. That's it for today's video. Make sure to subscribe so you can see the other parts of Aim Secrets and join the Discord community to become a part of something bigger. My name is Aristax, and I'd like to thank you for learning.